Hey guys, Omni here. We are going to be checking out a new Rockstar's video while sporting some of their own merch. But yeah, we're going to be watching their video on Kang's master plan explained. What was He Who Remains trick? You know, we've talked about this quite a lot ourselves, you know, whether it be on the 4 hours we spent on the live stream this past Saturday or the other videos from New Rockstars and Cosmic Wonder that we've discussed, or the conversations we've kind of had back and forth in the Discord channel as well in our Loki server. You know, we've been talking about a lot of this stuff, and I'm just curious to see what all the points of view are out there. So I figured we'd dive into this and see what Eric has to say. Now, as far as Trick goes, there was a little bit of a hint that he was orchestrating this thing all along to build this up. Now, he said that he was building the path, paving the way for them to get there to make this decision. But in the way that he courted them into this decision, was there something going on behind the scenes? I think there is a hint that there's a little more that he was letting on. I think there's some information he definitely withheld for sure. Obviously, considering the information that he passed along through Miss Minutes to Ravonna, he's playing his own little behind the scenes game, that is for sure. But what it is, we can only speculate at this point. But guys, let's see what Eric's got to say. I'm curious what he thinks the trick of this was. So let's go right in.
Back to New Rockstars, I'm Eric Voss, and the Loki finale left us feeling kind of like confused little kids.
Oh, grow up!
All credit goes to the cryptic performance of Jonathan Majors as He Who Remains, a variant of Kang the Conqueror. And we know he won, or a version of him won, but how exactly? Eating an apple a day to keep Doctor Strange away? After obsessing over this final episode, I have realized that uncertainty and distrust are necessary components of He Who Remains' plan. A plan that he actually started to show us a script of. We have part of a plan! But when we step back and start to widen our scope and realize that this plan was truly Kang's plan, we can better understand where things are headed not only in Season 2, but most other MCU titles ahead. Really, the first question we have to address is He Who Remains working against his other variants, or actually working in their collective interest? He explained his original variant was a 31st century scientist who discovered multiple realities at the same time as other variants, leading to a period of knowledge sharing, but then multiversal war. That war created tears in reality that created Alioth, which this variant weaponized, creating the TVA and the Void to prune the multiverse down to one timeline, end the chaos, and stop the war. We can conclude then that the Nexus events the TVA has been pruning are branches that actually lead to the rise of Kangs. He Who Remains says what he fears most of all is himself, and describes his role as a safeguard against the other Kangs.
I keep you safe. And if you think I'm evil, just wait till you meet my variants.
But the confusion comes from He Who Remains' apparent delight upon their crossing the threshold, going off script, the sacred timeline unraveling to allow other Kangs through the floodgates.
I read that. I'm just going to interrupt here for a second. Like that little, like him laughing, him like getting that kick, that felt like a little bit of a affront to me. Like, you know, kind of like when you get into a awkward situation and you kind of, I don't know. I know not everybody does this, but for me, if I get into an awkward situation or say something stupid or whatever, I just laugh and just kind of, well, shit, that kind of thing, you know? And that's kind of what I felt like he was doing. It was like, like he says, I don't know what to do now, was kind of what's going on there. Like, I felt like it was kind of, in a way, a little bit of a power play, a power move, but also him kind of not being in control, which in a way, after being in control all these years, has to in and of itself be a little bit of a relief as well.
And Sylvie killing him.
See you soon.
It's as if he wanted this to happen. As I pointed out in the breakdown, He Who Remains might have called this shot back when Sylvie beheaded the Timekeeper in episode 4. And we just learned from the director that all those timekeepers were voiced by Jonathan Majors. But despite all of He Who Remains' hard work, why would he now want his sacred timeline to unravel and other worse Kangs to take over? He made it sound like that was the worst option, with his preference being that Loki and Sylvie replace him, Willy Wonka style.
There's two options. One, you kill me and destroy all this, and you don't just have one devil, you have an infinite amount. Or
I love his delivery in that, man.
You two run the thing.
When Loki asks why he would give up his power, He Who Remains responds,
I'm tired, and I'm older than I look. This game is for the young, the hungry.
Now, I think He Who Remains might be telling the truth when he says he's old and tired, but I think his true intended
See, I feel
replacement
like
is
that
a
too.
younger and hungrier Kang. He Who Remains plan and Kang's plan are one and the same, to preserve Kang's supremacy by turning Loki and Sylvie against each other. And thank you to Vessi Shoes for sponsoring this video.
Also,
Vessi makes these knit sneakers that are
not too bad
100%
shoes.
waterproof
I
and
will say,
snowproof,
like, I've
making
got
them
a
the
pair
perfect
and they're
travel
pretty
shoe.
comfy.
These bad boys were made for splash.
But I do want to like just a perfect spot to like just kind of jump ahead and pause into, just to kind of dive in on that point there. I think, like, genuinely, at least that's my take on it. The read of that was the one moment I feel like he was his most honest, and just hearing that again just made me think, well, what if he is tired and, like he said, he knows what they're going to do, or at least I'm sure he has a strong idea of what they are going to do. But then again, at this point, he doesn't have the script anymore. He doesn't know which thing these guys are going to choose. So the likely scenario, I believe, would be that if they do take his place and run the TVA and fill his void, things could continue on. His work could continue on. The world could be saved from any other of his variants, but that's not what happens. So I think now my current theory, at least in this moment, is that maybe what if the information he sent to Ravonna was a clue to find a younger, hungrier version of this Kang, not Kang the Conqueror. I think while she's out there trying to find this He Who Remains to make sure he survives the upcoming multiversal war, to make sure he survives to create the TVA, but in his absence, while that one's dead and the other one has yet to even do any of this because the branches just started to form, he's got to be molded and given that time to do so, while another Kang has already kind of come in here. But then the only flaw in that is, like, we've already got a branch timeline that developed enough for a Kang to come and conquer the TVA. So there's a couple of ways they could twist this depending on how they want to move forward with the way that the branches and all that works. So I'd be curious to see if maybe that's what it was. Like, he genuinely... Do you guys feel like he's telling the truth, that he actually fears his other variants? I think he does. I think he's mostly telling the truth here, but I think because at the point where he ran out of the script, he doesn't know which they're going to choose. If they don't kill him and they decide to take his place, good on them. Awesome. If they don't and they kill him and things burn into chaos, he wants Renslayer, or hopes that Renslayer or somebody might be able to help his earlier self get back to this position again. But maybe not. Maybe that's just another wild theory. But then again, I don't have a whole lot of attachment to any of these theories. I just think it's fun, like, anytime a new idea comes up. But anyway, back to it.
To get $25 off your Vessi shoes. From the TVA's perspective, the most significant anomaly on this series occurred back in episode 4, when Loki and Sylvie held hands, creating a Nexus event so dangerous it bypassed the apocalypse that was supposed to erase it.
You ever seen a branch like that?
No.
Therefore, the greatest threat to Kang's order is two gods of mischief combining their intellects. That crashes the system. An anomaly so rare, so unprecedented, that the first words we hear He Who Remains speak reflect his shock at seeing two Lokis together.
This is wild. The two of you, same person. I mean, it's a little unnatural, but wow.
And when they later cross the threshold, the thunder rumbles, the sacred timeline begins to unravel. Sylvie has not yet even killed He Who Remains, though. That timeline is collapsing on its own, and that's because the moment variants
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
and L1190 came together, the version of the sacred timeline that's been overseen by He Who Remains became obsolete and was destined to unravel the longer these two variants stayed together. And now He Who Remains has accepted his fate, that his fragile stalemate can no longer function, And as much as he hates to admit it, he must save his Kang Empire by stepping down, and while doing so, making sure these two Lokis are divided. Now, in the comics, the variant Kangs are organized into a council of Kangs, led by Kang Prime.
Then why bring them together in the first place? Because he said he paved the road for them both to get there. He said specifically that he wanted both of them to make it there. Unless he paved the way for them to get here, but then again, he made it possible for Loki to get away from the Avengers with the Tesseract because he needed Loki to get there to him. Vice versa, like same thing with Sylvie. Whatever she did or didn't do, she hadn't really done it yet, but he needed her to get to him. Because he said his plan really hinged on both of them. Unless that too was a lie. Who knows? Who knows? Shady shit going on, man. It's whenever you can't really tell what exactly is the truth and what isn't, it makes it really hard to kind of figure out where things are going. But that's how they get you. That's how they get you thinking about this stuff and wanting and craving the next entry.
They eliminate divergent Kangs from the multiverse to ensure Kang Prime would become Immortus. Confusing couple sentences there, I get it. But the point is, he who remains is likely not working alone, but really on behalf of the greater Kang kind. And now, thanks to his system failure to ensure the survival of the Kang Empire, he must step aside and allow a new Kang to take his place. If you think about it that way, it starts to make sense why he who remains presents his gambit this way.
That's the gambit. Stifling order or cataclysmic chaos.
Kang's gambit is perfectly designed to turn Loki and Sylvie against each other by giving one exactly what they want while giving the other what they most dread, playing on their innate propensity to distrust, to outsmart, to overthink, or as Mobius says,
It's always the game within the game with you guys.
So in this ultimatum, we got option A, perpetuate the lie, allow Loki to rule alongside his love, but in doing so, trap Sylvie alongside someone she can't fully trust and force her to rob countless innocents of their free will, as was done to her as a young girl. Like, even if Sylvie had said yes to this, eventually it would have worn her down and turned her against Loki. So instead, she cannot help but go with option B, revenge, executing he who remains for the injustices that she's experienced, even if that would mean playing Kang whack-a-mole for the rest of all time. Because think about it, vengeance seekers, they always just keep scratching that itch. It's never enough. And in doing so, this would forever trap Loki within someone else's game, which is his worst nightmare. So knowing all the Loki's tendency to second guess everything is their own undoing, he remains primed this ultimatum with seeds of doubt the entire conversation.
My methods are deceptive. Sylvie!
You think you can trust this guy?
We're all villains here. We've all done horrible, terrible, horrific things.
Which notice he says to Sylvie while pointing to Loki. So as it comes time to make a decision, whichever option they might lean toward, he who remains has already rigged this decision by priming these Lokis to doubt each other. They now believe either option is a zero-sum game, where if their variant were to win, they were to lose. It's game theory 101, folks. Play your opponents against each other by making them think cooperation is not an option.
Because you can't trust. And I can't be trusted.
So, when the timeline begins to fracture before Sylvie even makes a move and they go off script, he who remains knows in that moment that his plan was successful. It's proof that the script is no longer in his hands, but in the hands of one of his variants. And more importantly, that Sylvie and Loki are no longer on the same page of it. Divided and conquered. And that is where Loki is tragically left at the end of this season, just as Lady Sif said he would be.
I hope you know you deserve to be alone, and you always will be.
But the fact that he could just want someone else to be okay, learn it's not about him, that gives us hope that he can defy the master plan of Team Kang. And knowing this, we now know what Kangs fear the most are not other Kangs, it's other Nexus beings that could destabilize their empire, and variants of the same being cooperating, complementing each other, but not following the history that the Kang variants did and going to war with each other. So Kang's greatest threat going forward? The Scarlet Witch, alternate Sorcerers Supreme, a possible trio of Spider-Man variants, and Loki's someday, hopefully, learning to trust each other. Comment down below with your thoughts and theories. Remember, you can still get our Loki-inspired merch at newrockstarsmerch.com, like our Loki at a Time shirt directly supports us here at New Rockstars. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EAVoss.
Anyway, guys, go check them out. Follow them if you haven't. I know a lot of the people that frequent these videos already do. But yeah, A lot of fun with that. A lot of different. There's just so many different ways you can read that situation. And honestly, I'll be 100% transparent. Like, I don't know which one I would necessarily subscribe to. I'm definitely open to the possibility of all of it because it all leads to something interesting. Because I do wonder if he truly meant what he said about paving the way to get there, because then again, he's taking credit for all of their achievements to get to him. Putting them together, creating these situations in which they can come out of this whole situation and have it lead to him to be put in this this fight against one another. I still kind of feel like he believes in the order that he's created, and that I don't know that he necessarily fears these two, because if he did put them on this path, like, why? Like, he could have just left him to get pruned and then nothing would have happened. Like, he set it up to where they would be in the situation to be able to get to him. And I feel like for me, my read, not saying it's the case, I'm not 100% married to it. I feel like what he said is mostly true, but like what I was explaining there earlier was that, he did think that these two together might be able to continue on his legacy. But then again, why would he seed those seeds of doubt throughout that conversation? Because his wordplay was very pointed at what both of them desire individually and not as a unit. So he was definitely driving little mini wedges between them throughout that conversation. So maybe while there was nuggets of truth throughout there, he was still like, I think maybe if the end goal wasn't to have them fight, maybe he was sowing those seeds to see if they could truly trust on each other, see if they were actually able to put their worst part of their natures aside, and trust each other in the end. Both of them trust each other in the end, but they didn't. So I'm wondering if he set that up with the intention to see if they would turn on each other, but to test that bond and just see that maybe it wasn't as strong as they had thought, or at least it wasn't. Maybe it was a little more one-sided than it wasn't. So Sylvie's like thirst for revenge overrode everything, and I don't know. Who knows? Like I said, there's a couple of different ways you could read it, the whole situation, the whole plan. And who knows, we may never really know what the intention was in the long run since he's gone, and we'll just kind of have to speculate about what it was meant to be, what his goal was, unless we find out what exactly he told Renslayer, which, like I was saying, could be a fallback plan. He could, like I said, he could have been sowing those seeds to see if they were really worthy to take that spot, and if they could take that spot. But if they failed, they turned on each other and he died in that situation. Nobody was there to take his spot. Then he sent that note to Ravonna to go find him to make sure that he still becomes, he who remains in the end. Could be wrong. Could be wrong again. But I'm not hoping to be right. I'm just letting you know what I think, guys. I want to know what you guys think, though. Sound off the comments. Let me know down below what you guys thought. Did you think he was tricking them? What do you think his goal was? What is his master plan in this whole thing? Do you think he actually pave the road, as he said, for them to get to him, or do you think there was just a lot of just gracious wordplay to make them feel important? Let me know your thoughts and your theories down below. We'll carry on the conversation after the video, guys. Before we go, shout out to our channel legends, Mandy Sherritt, Ryan Karen, Jason Coleman, and Philly Vane. Thank you guys for your support. If you want to join the Discord or follow me on my socials where we talk about this stuff and I share a bunch of extra little tidbits here and there, links to all those are in the description of this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.